Hello dear children, welcome back. I'm Dr. Jisha Joe. In this session, we shall discuss some important questions from the chapter Excretory System. So children, first we shall move on to the definition type questions. These terms can also be asked as an explain briefly type question, okay? First one, excretion, the process of removal of nitrogenous waste products from the body. Micturition, the process by which urine stored in the urinary bladder is expelled out through the urethra by the relaxation of the sphincter muscles at the opening of the urinary bladder into the urethra under the impulse from the brain. Normally micturition is asked as explain briefly type question, okay? If in case it is asked as definition, you can write this. Ultrafiltration, the filtration taking place under an extraordinary force in which almost all the liquid part of the blood from the glomerulus passes into the renal tubule. Ultrafiltration also can be asked as define or definition type or as an explain briefly type question. Glomerular filtrate, the fluid entering the renal tubule after ultrafiltration. Selective reabsorption, reabsorption of useful materials including water, glucose and salts in the renal tubule is in such a way that it does not affect the normal osmotic concentration of the blood. This is called as selective reabsorption. Tubular secretion, passage of substances like potassium, harmful substances or drugs by the activity of the cells of the wall of DCT into the forming urine. Hematuria, condition in which blood passes out with urine. Glycosuria, condition in which excess glucose passes out with urine. Can be asked for a difference also, okay? Hematuria and glycosuria. Then urine, the filtrate left after selective reabsorption and tubular secretion is called as urine. Diuresis, increased production of urine due to insufficient secretion of ADH. Okay, can be asked. Normally it is asked for write short notes or explain briefly, or as name the following also it can be asked, okay? Increased production of urine due to insufficient secretion of ADH, diuresis. Osmoregulation, it's the regulation of osmotic concentration of the blood by the kidneys, okay? Maintaining the osmotic pressure in the body fluids present in the tissue and blood by the process of osmosis. It is osmoregulation. Homeostasis is the maintenance of a steady state condition inside the body. Okay, this is brought about by osmoregulation. Artificial kidney is the dialysis machine. In some certain cases, when both the kidneys of a person fail to function properly, can be asked as explain briefly, not as definition, as explain briefly or write short notes. Then you have to explain that when both the kidneys of a person fail to function, then the blood is filtered using the dialysis machine, which is otherwise called as the artificial kidney. The blood from the renal artery is passed through the machine wherein the nitrogenous content, that is the urea and excess salts, are removed from the blood, and the filtered blood is then returned to the renal vein. Okay, so that is how you have to explain what is artificial kidney. Now moving on to the second type of questions, differentiation. Afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole. Okay, afferent arteriole is the arteriole that enters into the concavity of the Bowman's capsule, and it has a wider diameter is more than the efferent arteriole, remember that. And the efferent arteriole is the arteriole that moves out of the glomerulus. Okay, and the diameter, remember, efferent arteriole is narrower than the efferent arteriole. Renal artery and renal vein, maybe in brackets it can be given what is the composition of the blood flowing through renal artery and renal vein, or just the difference if asked. Renal artery is the artery that carries blood into the kidney, renal vein carries blood away from the kidney. And renal artery, remember, it contains all the nitrogenous waste that are carried from different parts of the body, but the blood is oxygenated. Whereas a renal vein is the nitrogenous, it carries blood with very little or very least amount of nitrogenous waste, but it is deoxygenated. Okay, deoxygenated. Then ureter and urethra, that is, what is ureter? The tube which connects the kidney with the urinary bladder is the ureter. And what is urethra? The urinary bladder opens to the outside through the urethra. Okay, or you can say function can be asked in brackets. Function, if it is written function, you have to differentiate the two on the basis of function. What will you write? Ureter, it carries urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder. Urethra helps to pass the urine out from the urinary bladder. PCT and DCT. PCT, what is PCT? It is the starting convoluted region of the renal tubule, and DCT, it is the end part of the renal tubule. And sometimes the function can be asked. To differentiate the two on the basis of function can be asked. Okay, PCT, in PCT most of the water and most of glucose, sodium and chloride ions are absorbed in the PCT, whereas in the DCT little amount of water and some amount of the remaining chlorides are also absorbed in the DCT. Also tubular secretion takes place in the DCT. Okay, Bowman's capsule and Malpighian capsule. Okay, what is Bowman's capsule? That is the thin walled cup like structure, which is the first part of the nephron or the kidney tubule. Okay, thin walled cup shaped structure which forms the first part of the kidney tubule is the Bowman's capsule. Malpighian capsule is the Bowman's capsule together with the glomerulus is the Malpighian capsule. Malpighian capsule is also called as renal capsule. Okay, and when you pronounce it, please pronounce it as Malpighian. It is not, some has a tendency of pronouncing it as Malpighian, which is wrong. You will get the spelling also wrong if you pronounce it like that. Renal cortex and renal medulla. Okay, location. Renal cortex lies, it is the outer region of the kidney. Renal medulla, it is the inner part of the kidney. Remember, cortex is darker in color, medulla is lighter in color. Cortex has a dotted appearance, medulla has a striped appearance. And what are the parts of the nephron that are located in the cortex and medulla also you should know. Okay, so in the renal cortex lies the Bowman's capsule along with the glomerulus, the PCT, DCT, all these lie in the renal cortex, whereas the renal medulla contain the collecting duct and the loop of Henle. Okay, and the presence of this loop of Henle and the collecting duct gives the medulla a striped appearance. That can be asked as give reason also. We will discuss in the give reason part. Diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus. What is diabetes mellitus? When the urine contain excess of glucose. Okay, diabetes mellitus is the result, the condition in which excess glucose is passed out through the through urine is called diabetes mellitus. Whereas diabetes insipidus, it is a condition in which much water is lost out through urine. And the hormone, and I think the same question we have discussed in under differentiation in endocrine system also. The hormone that is responsible for diabetes mellitus, insufficient secretion of insulin, isn't it? So glucose is not being converted into glycogen, so most of the glucose will be released out through urine, whereas diabetes insipidus is due to the insufficient secretion of ADH or antidiuretic hormone. We know antidiuretic hormone controls the absorption of water in the kidneys. Okay, so the concentration of the urine by water reabsorption is controlled by the ADH. Okay, then so these are the differences that you can expect from this chapter. Now moving on to the location and role. Kidney location and role of the kidney. Where is it located? Kidney is located on either side of the backbone and it is protected by the last two ribs. Okay, and function or role of the kidney. There are twofold functions for the kidney. That is, first one is osmoregulation and second is excretion. Pelvis. What is pelvis? Pelvis is the expanded portion, the front part of the ureter which is expanded into the kidney. That is the pelvis. And what is the function? It is the pelvis which collects the urine from the different nephrons. The collecting duct carries the urine and pours it into the pelvis. Okay. Ureter location, it is a tube that connects the kidney with the urinary bladder. And what is the role of ureter? Carries urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder for temporary storage of urine. Urinary bladder, okay, it is a sac-like structure present in the abdominal cavity, and the function of urinary bladder is to store urine temporarily. Urethra, it is a small tube which opens to the outside of the body from the urinary bladder, and the function of the urethra is to carry urine out. Okay, it is through the urethra the urine is passed out of the body. Renal cortex. Renal cortex is the outer portion of the kidney, outer part of the kidney or outer region of the kidney. And what is the role of cortex? You can write the parts of the nephron that are located in the cortex. It is in the cortex that the PCT, the Malpighian capsule and the DCT are located. Renal medulla, that is the inner part or inner region of the kidney, and function or role, it is the region where the loop of Henle and the collecting duct are present. Bowman's capsule, it is the first part of the nephron, which is a thin walled cup shaped structure. And what is the role? It is in the Bowman's capsule, ultrafiltration takes place. Okay, it is the region where ultrafiltration takes place. Glomerulus also, that is the tuft of capillaries present in the concavity of the Bowman's capsule. Again, the role is it is the region where ultrafiltration takes place. Or you can write the role of Bowman's capsule as it is the part of the kidney tubule where the glomerular filtrate is received. Okay, I think that would be a better answer. Bowman's capsule is the region of the kidney tubule where the glomerular filtrate is received after ultrafiltration. Glomerulus role helps in ultrafiltration. Okay, I hope the functions of the two are clear to you. Then PCT location, that is the starting region, convoluted region of the nephron immediately after the Bowman's capsule or close to the Bowman's capsule. And function, you can write most of the water, glucose, sodium and chloride ions are reabsorbed in the PCT. Loop of Henle, it is a U-shaped or a hairpin shaped loop which is present in the medulla, renal medulla, and it is present between the PCT and DCT. Okay, and what is the function? The absorption of some amount of water and sodium ions take place in the loop of Henle. DCT, you can write the last part or the end part of the kidney tubule that is located in the renal cortex, and a function of DCT, DCT is involved in the reabsorption of the remaining water and the chloride ions. And also you can mention about tubular secretion, that is also important. Okay, DCT, it is in the DCT where tubular secretion takes place. Now collecting duct is located in the medulla, and what is the function of the collecting duct? It is into the collecting duct receives the urine from the different kidney tubules or nephrons and pours it into the pelvis. Okay, so it is the collecting duct that receives the urine from the different nephrons and pours it into the pelvis. Nephron, that is the basic structural and functional unit of the kidney, you can write, and function of nephron is it helps in the formation of urine. Now moving on to the fourth set of questions, give reason. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left kidney. What is the reason? That is to accommodate the liver. Okay, the answer is to accommodate the liver. The openings of the ureters somewhat projecting into the urinary bladder. The openings of the ureters is somewhat projecting into the urinary bladder. These projections act as valves to prevent the backward flow of urine when the urinary bladder contracts to pass out the urine. Okay. Once again, I'll repeat, these projections or projecting regions of the ureters act as valves to prevent the backflow of urine when the urinary bladder contracts to pass out urine. Renal cortex has a dotted appearance. Why? What is the reason? Because it is in the renal cortex, the Bowman's capsule along with the glomerulus and the PCT, DCT are present, and it is the glomerulus, we know it is the tuft of capillaries, reddish color structures, because it is rich in blood. So these the presence of the glomerulus in the renal cortex give that dotted appearance to the renal cortex. So you have to mention that the renal cortex contain the Bowman's capsule along with the glomerulus as well as the PCT and DCT. Okay, so the presence of the glomerulus in the cortex give the dotted appearance to renal cortex. Renal medulla has a striped appearance. It is due to the presence of a loop of Henle and the collecting duct. The efferent arteriole is narrower than the afferent arteriole. So what is the reason? Why is it that? Because this is needed to create a great pressure, or this difference in diameter of the two arterioles creates a high pressure in the blood that flows through the glomerulus. Okay, so this difference in diameter between the two arterioles is necessary to maintain a high pressure in the blood flowing through the glomerulus. Then only ultrafiltration can take place. Okay, there is a spelling mistake there. Okay, no problem. Next, give reason. Urine is generally thicker in summer than in winter. What is the reason? Yes, in summer, we know perspiration, lot of sweating takes place. So, a lot of water is lost out from the body through the process of sweating or perspiration, and the kidneys have to reabsorb more water from the urine, making it more concentrated. That is the reason why urine is generally thicker in summer than in winter. Okay. Cholera patients suffer from vomiting and watery bowels. In cholera, the patients suffering from cholera, it is due to the improper functioning of the large intestine. Okay, so most of the water, there is no reabsorption taking place in the large intestine, and most of the water will be lost out. That is the reason for the watery bowels there. And that is, once again, the intestine is not able to function properly, is not able to absorb water properly, and that is the reason why most of the water will be released out as watery bowels. And as a result of this, the kidneys have to reabsorb almost all the water from urine, and this reabsorption is in such a way that it will even reabsorb the urea content. And we have seen that urea is poisonous, and if this urea accumulates in the body, it can lead to the death of the person. So that is the reason why cholera patients die. Okay, so here cholera patients suffer from vomiting and watery bowels. That is, the reason is that in such patients, his intestines which are not functioning properly. The intestines are not able to absorb water into the blood. So as a result, what happens, most of the water is released out either as watery bowels or as vomiting. Okay. There is frequent urination in winter than in summer. The first, that is, urine is generally thicker in summer than in winter. In another way, that same question is asked. There is frequent urination in winter than in summer. Here also the answer is the same. In summer, we know perspiration or sweating takes place, and a lot of water is lost out through the process of perspiration, and the kidneys have to reabsorb more water from the urine, making it more concentrated. Whereas in winter, there is no sweating taking place there. So most of the water will be released out only through urine. Okay. So there is frequent urination in winter than in summer. Glucose is normally not found in urine. What is the reason? Because we know most of the glucose is reabsorbed back. Where is it? At the PCT. The kidneys reabsorb most of the glucose. So glucose is normally not found in the urine of a normal person. Moving on to the structured type questions. Yeah, human urinary system, the diagram can be asked as a diagram based question to label the parts. So you should know which is the right kidney, which is the left kidney and all. Okay, and the dorsal aorta may be asked to mark, asked to be labeled, the adrenal gland, then the urinary bladder, all those parts. That diagram is there in the text, the human urinary system. That diagram can be asked as a diagram based question. And remember, your right hand side, the kidney that is present on your right hand side is the left kidney in the diagram. Okay, so sometimes the kidneys, they might ask you to label the kidneys, the right kidney and the left kidney. So the kidney in the diagram which is on your right hand side is the left kidney, and the kidney on your left hand side will be the right kidney. Remember that when you label. The internal structure of kidney, that can be asked either as a diagram or as a diagram based question. So best thing is to draw and study the diagram. If in case it is asked as a diagram or a diagram based question, you will have no problem in answering. Whenever diagrams come, you can easily score marks in such questions. Okay, it is very easy to score marks in diagram based questions, or when diagrams are asked, rather than writing the give reasons and all. When questions come like that, you can just writing one word, you will be able to get 1 mark. That is the positive what we say factor about diagram based question. So it is better that you draw and study the internal structure of kidney. Okay, so when you draw, you should label the renal capsule, the renal cortex should be labeled, the medulla should be labeled, the pyramids, the papilla, all these should be labeled, the pelvis, the hilum, all these can be labeled. Okay, so draw and study. Next is a nephron. Nephron is normally asked as a diagram based question. Okay, no, it has not been asked as a diagram question. It is normally asked as a diagram based question. What is the process that is taking place? Identify this, identify the diagram. What is the process that is taking place, or label the different parts that are marked 1 2 3 like that. Such questions can be asked from the diagram. So it is also asked as a diagram based question. Later on, while I'm planning to discuss a few question papers, a few questions, we will do it later, then you will understand more about the type of questions that might be asked for the exam. Okay, then Malpighian capsule, that is a diagram which you can expect for the exam. Malpighian capsule. Okay, nephron is not normally asked as a diagram, but Malpighian capsule you should know to draw and label the parts. Okay, and when you draw the Malpighian capsule, the Bowman's what is Malpighian capsule? It is the Bowman's capsule together with the glomerulus. So while drawing the glomerulus, you should also draw the afferent arteriole and the efferent arteriole. And when you draw the two arterioles, there should be a difference in the diameter of the two arterioles. Okay, remember that the efferent arteriole is narrower than the afferent arteriole, and you should also mark the arrows there and label the parts. Okay, so that is the Malpighian capsule. So Malpighian capsule is normally asked as a diagram. So draw and study the diagram. So with that, we come to the end of question discussion of this chapter, the excretory system. Hope what we have discussed today is clear to you. If you have any doubts, please ask your doubts and also give your suggestions in the comment section, children. Thank you.